G'day guys and welcome back to AdosTheGreat YouTube channel. So guys, in today's video, I'm going to be giving you my NRL ladder predictions for 2023, or as I should say, way too early ladder predictions for 2023. Now, as you can see to my left here, I have my little poster set up with all the tiers. So Tier 1, 1 through to 4, Tier 2, 5 through to 8, Tier 3, 9 through to 12, and Tier 4, 13 through to 17. So, as it states at the top, all tiers are in alphabetical order. They are not ranked exactly where I think they'll finish. So, if you get annoyed because I've put a team at 17th and you disagree, that may not actually be where I rank them. That's just how they finished in this tier list because each tier is in alphabetical order. Around February next year. So around February next year, when the NRL Ladder Predictor gets released with the whole draw and everything like that, I'll do an in-depth ladder prediction like I did this season. So stay tuned for that one. But yeah, let's jump in and let's check this one out. Now, I will go through each team fairly in depth as to why I've ranked them where I have. So yeah, hopefully some of you guys will agree with me. I know I'm definitely going to get some that do disagree. Now, I have got one team falling out of the top 8, so spoiler alert. Historically, we see around 2 teams drop out of that top 8, but there are 7 teams in my top 8 that were in last season's top 8. So yeah, I've made a few little tweaks to the top 8, but yeah, I'm sure you guys will see that shortly. Starting off with Tier 4, we've got the Titans, the Knights, the Warriors, the Dragons, and the West Tigers. Now, I have gone alphabetical order with their names. So G being Gold Coast, N being Newcastle, N being New Zealand, S being St. George, and W being West Tigers. So these are my bottom 5, I should say. And let's just have a look as to why I've ranked them there. So if we look at the Gold Coast Titans, while arguably their roster probably does get a little bit better, I think that the teams above them are just way too good at the moment. They do bring in Kieran Foran and Sam Verrills, as well as Joe Stimson from the Bulldogs. They've moved on from Jermaine Osako, Jared Wallace, and Herman Sasa, who joined the Dolphins. Hassan Masters and Corey Thompson also leave the club. So, look, I think as a roster, it's improved, but even with Kieran Foran and Sam Verrills, I can't see them improving too much in 2022. So I think they still will be around the bottom of the pack. The next team is the Newcastle Knights. Now, the Knights roster, in my opinion, has arguably gotten worse. They've signed Jack Hetherington, Adam Elliott, and Tyson Gamble. They have lost Mitch Barnett, Edric Lee, Anthony Milford, Sawaso Su, Pasami Sulo, and a few other sort of roster filler players. So in my mind, their roster has gotten a little bit worse. So I think they will probably see a bigger fall this year, potentially a wooden spoon. I'm not sure. I'll have to do my ladder predictor to see. But yeah, that's where I see the Knights in the bottom 5. Next up, we've got the New Zealand Warriors. And the Warriors are a team that I don't think, some of these players they've added do sort of make them a better team, but they've also lost a lot of experience as well. They've added Marata Niokore, Dylan Walker, Mitch Barnett, Chance Nickel-Klokstad, and Tamare Martin. And they've lost Ewan Aitken, Reece Walsh, Elise Katoa, and Jack Murchie. So, they have definitely brought in some players to fill some of the roles that they've lost and arguably gotten better in some of those roles. But, I see a lot of people ranking them in the 9 to 12 sort of range. I just can't do that. I think we need to see, need to see a few games before we rank them any higher than what I have in my opinion. I do think they will struggle this year, especially when they're away from home. When they are at home, they seem really good. So, yeah, I guess it's just we're just going to have to see what the Warriors provide this year. I think they've got a roster that could arguably be a top 4 team. A top 8 team. But I just don't think that they. I don't know. They just don't seem to put that roster into results. So we'll see what happens. But for me, I've got them in the bottom 5, along with the St. George Illawarra Dragons. Now, the Dragons have only added Jacob Little. Other than that, they've lost Daniel Alvaro, middle of the season, to France. They lost Tariq Sims, Josh Maguire, and Jackson Ford going on to next year. So, yeah, realistically, it's not the worst losses. I think they're also losing one of their young guns to the Bulldogs, I've heard. That was, I can't remember his name. Tyrell Sloan, I think, is signing with the Bulldogs. Correct me if I am wrong. But, I believe he's also leaving the club. So, there's a lot of players, a lot of good experienced players leaving. And realistically, signing Jacob Little isn't really going to help them that much. So I do think we'll see another fall from the Dragons this year. All right, moving forward onto the last team in Tier 4, I've got the Wests Tigers. Now, they have arguably made some of the better changes going forward. They've signed Isaiah Papali'i, Apisai Coruscant, David Nofaluma is returning, and Oliver Gildart also returning. They've lost Luke Garner, Kelma Tuolangi, Jacob Little, and Jock Madden. So I definitely think the Tigers, we may see an improvement this year. I don't see them winning the wooden spoon, but I don't think they'll be much higher than 12th, to be honest. So that's why they are in my bottom 5. All right, next up in tier number 3, my teams are the Brisbane Broncos, Canberra Raiders, Manly Seagulls, and Redcliffe Dolphins. So let's go and have a look at all these respective teams. For the Brisbane Broncos, we see them gain Jesse Arthurs, who's returning from the Warriors, Jock Madden, and Reece Walsh. So I'd say arguably the best player they're bringing in is Reece Walsh. They are losing a lot of talent next year. Ryan James has retired. Tamare Martin is leaving to the Warriors. Zach Hosking has left to go to the Panthers. They've also lost Tyson Gamble and Branko Lee. So the Broncos have lost quite a bit of talent there. While they've still got a very strong team, I think they will miss the top 8 again. I do apologise, Broncos fans. Next up, I've got the Canberra Raiders. Now, the Canberra Raiders only signing for 2023 at this stage is Pasami Sulu from the Newcastle Knights, and they have lost a huge amount of talent. Josh Hodgson, Adam Elliott, Charles Nickel-Klokstad, and Ryan Sutton all leaving the club. So, they're big losses. They honestly are. They've still got a team that could fight for a final spot, in my opinion. However, I think, there's a lot of experience leaving the club there. I think they may struggle to make the top 8. So that is my take on the Raiders. Unfortunately, I do have them missing the top 8. Sorry, Raiders fans. Sorry, Jordan. Shout out to you, mate. One of my closest mates in Rockhampton. Next up, I've got Manly Warringah Seagulls. So Manly, their only gain is Kelma Tuolangi, and they've lost George Tafua earlier on in the season, as well as Sione Fainu, who wasn't really in that first grade squad. They've lost Dylan Walker, Kieran Foran, Andrew Davey, and Martin Tapau next season. So some pretty big losses there for Manly. I think we will see them struggle again this year. I think they could be even lower if Turbo gets injured. I think even if Turbo plays next year, I think they've lost too much talent to still warrant them a top 8 spot. I think that they've really cut into their depth, and that is going to hurt them next year. All right, on to the final team. It's the Redcliffe Dolphins. I think they're going to have a decent season. I don't see them making the top 8 in their first year, but they have added some really good talent to their squad. So we'll go through their gains because obviously there are no losses. For the Melbourne Storm, they've acquired Felice Kafusi, Jesse Bromwich, Kenny Bromwich. From Parramatta, they've added Ray Stone. From the Broncos, Brenko Lee. The Knights, Edric Lee and Anthony Milford. Jermaine Asako, Jared Wallace and Herman Sasa join from the Gold Coast Titans. Ewan Aitken joins from the Warriors, Jeremy Marshall-King from the Bulldogs, Isaiah Katoa, Robert Jennings and Sean O'Sullivan join from the Penrith Panthers, Mark Nichols and Cody Nikorima from the South Sydney Rabbitohs, Tom Gilbert, Corneli Lemuelu and Hamiso Tabuai Fido joined from the North Queensland Cowboys. Then they've also gained some other roster fillers in there as well. So I think that's a pretty good squad. It's definitely not bad at all. If they can get a few other big name players, I think that they could definitely be up and around that top 8. But I can't see them making it in the first year. Although Wayne Bennett is a very good coach, and you just never know. All right. Next up, Tier 2, I've got the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs, Cronulla Sharks, Melbourne Storm and Parramatta Eels. All right, let's talk about the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs. Arguably one of the better teams for player movements in 2023. They have reportedly signed Reid Marnie, Viliami Kikau and Ryan Sutton. However, these have not officially been confirmed by the club. They are going to join, just have not been confirmed. Now, their losses are Brent Naden and Matt Duffy, who left mid-season in 2022. Their 2023 losses are Jeremy Marshall-King, Jack Hetherington, Paul Vaughan and Joe Stimson. Now, I think you could arguably say the players they have brought in are leagues better than the players they have lost. So I do think we'll see a massive improvement from the Bulldogs, as well as the players that joined last year, Josh Addo-Carr, Matt Burton, Max King, just to name a few. So Tavita Pangai Jr. is another one as well. So I think, they've finally started to see improvement, and they've got plans in place for improvement. I think Cameron Ciraldo is a huge in for them as coach, and I think we will see massive improvements from the Bulldogs, and they are my first new top 8 team. They are my new top 8 team. The one dropping out was obviously the Raiders. Next up, we have the Cronulla Sutherland Sharks. Their only gain is Oregon Kafusi, who in my mind is a very underrated player and a good signing for Cronulla. Their losses are Luke Metcalf, Franklin Pele, Andrew Fafita, who were both released. My apologies. And Aidan Tolman, who has retired. So not too many changes. I think Andrew Fafita is a pretty big loss, but to get Oregon Kafusi in place of him on the bench is pretty good in my opinion. If they can stay healthy and, play like they did this year, I think they can definitely push for a top 4 spot. However, I think we will see a slight fall from last year. Shout out to them for their improvement, but I think teams are working out how they play now. And I still think they will be a solid top 8 squad, but I don't think they will be top 4. My next team in the top 4 in the top 8 is the Melbourne Storm. Melbourne Storm have lost a fair bit of experience going into the 2023 season. Their only signings are Tariq Sims and Elise Katoa, both good signings in their own right, but when you look at who they've lost, I think they're going to have a little bit of, not so much a rebuild season, but they're going to sort of start to fall slowly. I understand they've still got a very good squad, but, losing Felice Kafusi, both the Bromwich boys, and Brandon Smith is definitely going to hurt them. I don't think they'll be that huge Melbourne Storm team that we're used to seeing always in the top four. I think they're going to slide even further this year, possibly to that 7th or 8th spot. I don't see them dropping out of the top 8, but I do think they will have a little bit of a slide this year. All right, next up, we've got the Parramatta Eels. Now, the Eels have lost a lot of talent as well. Losing Murata Niokore, Isaiah Papali'i, Ray Stone, Oregon Kafusi, Tom Opachik, and Reed Marnie. Honestly, big losses for them. They have gained some pretty big names as well. However, I just don't think the quality of players they've brought in matches the quality of players going out. They've signed Josh Hodgson, Jermaine Hopgood, who will more than likely win both signing of the year and most improved player, in my opinion. Jack Murchie is another good signing that they've acquired from the Warriors. So decent signings, but I think they've just lost too much quality. And I think we will definitely see them fall a little bit this year. I don't see them in the top 4. I think they'll be around that 5th or 6th spot, in my opinion. All right, now, speaking of top 4, we are finally there. Tier 1 for me is the North Queensland Cowboys, Penrith Panthers, South Sydney Rabbitohs, and Sydney Roosters. So, boy, oh boy, I know I'm going to get a lot of hate for having the Rabbitohs in the top 4, but when we get to them in my explanation, I will talk on that a little bit. But let's talk about the North Queensland Cowboys. They have not gained any players in 2023 as of this point. They've lost Tom Gilbert, Caneli Lemuelu, I'm definitely butchering that name, and Hamiso Tabuai-Fidow. I think, they're looking all right going into next season, but again, I'm a bit nervous about. Look, I think they're going to be a top 4 team. I think losing Tommy Gilbert and Hamiso will hurt them a little bit with that bench depth, but they've still got a very good team. I don't know what's going to happen with Luciano Leilua, but they will welcome back from injury Hillam Lukey, as well as there was another one. I can't think of who it is at the moment. I've had a mind blank. Can't think of who the other one was that they will welcome back from injury. But yes, so Hillam Lukey is a massive in for them. If Luciano Leilua doesn't play, I think you'll see Hillam Lukey start in the second row. Otherwise, he adds a lot of experience to their bench. So very good year from the Cowboys in 2022, and I think they'll carry that over into next season. All right, next up, we've got the Penrith Panthers. So for the Penrith Panthers, their only signing was Luke Garner. Very excited to see Eddie Blacker. I'd say he's going to get a bigger role next year, obviously with the Panthers losing some key players there. So Panthers gain Luke Garner, as I just stated. They lose Apsai Coruscant, Isaiah Katoa, who was sort of in their development squad, Robert Jennings, Sean O'Sullivan, and Jermaine Hopgood. They also lose Viliami Kikau to the Bulldogs. So, that they've lost a fair bit of experience there, which happens after winning premierships. They obviously can't keep these players together forever. Now, you guys might be going, mate, that's crazy. Like, they lose Viliami Kikau, Apsai Coruscant. That's insane. Like, how are they going to... And they've only signed Luke Garner. Like, don't get me wrong, Luke Garner's a great player, but are they really going to be all that well off after losing such talent like that? You got to remember, last year they lost Kurt Capewell, who was an Origin-level centre. He has struggled a bit this season, but, I think they'll be fine. I really do. Like, they've got that next man up mentality, and I think we're going to see another good season, if not great season from the Panthers. I'd arguably say they should be the favourites for both the minor premiership and the premiership next year. So, yeah, I wouldn't be too worried, Panthers fans, about those losses. You guys have several players that can cover. So, yes, good pretty good year of retention, to be honest, for the Panthers. So next up, we've got my South Sydney Rabbitohs, and you guys might be going, look at this biased Rabbitohs fan picking the Rabbitohs in the top 4. I think they will finish in the top 4 this year. I'm very confident of that. I had them at 7th in my 2022 ladder predictions. I think we're going to see a huge improvement in 2023. Now, they haven't acquired anyone at this stage. However, with Manly releasing Martin Tapau, there are big rumours stating that he will join the Rabbitohs in 2023. Obviously, nothing is set in stone, but if he does, then I do think that the Rabbitohs, losing obviously Mark Nichols and Cody Nikorima as well as Jackson Barlow are big losses for Souths, especially for their depth. I do think Martin Tapau could jump straight back in for a Marky Nichols, especially off the bench. I think with two heavy hitters like him and Tom Burgess off the bench, I think they're going to be hard to stop. So if we are to sign Martin Tapau, I think that is definitely going to help us this year. However, we do have quite a bit of depth in our forward pack. You've got to remember, we've got Jacob Host and Liam Knight both coming back from injuries. You've also got players like Daniel Saluka Fafita. Who else? We've got Jed Cartwright, who didn't get a lot of game time this year. So we do have a lot of depth in our forwards as well as our backs as well. There's the question mark about who's going to start on the wing. You've got Tane Milne or Isaac Thompson. You've also got players like Josiah Karapani, who is a very good up-and-coming player. Terrell Colo, who is a very good player coming up through the ranks as well. Richie Kennard's another one. So I've seen a lot of quote-unquote experts saying the Rabbitohs lack depth going into next season. I very much disagree. I think we will be fine with the depth. If they want to put another utility on the bench like they were using Cody Nikorima for, I think Blake Taff is another one they could look to as well. It's likely, I believe they have re-signed Michael Cheekham. Could be wrong about that. It has got him off contract at the moment, but I do believe they have re-signed him. So, he's another player that adds depth to the bench. So for a lot of these experts saying that we don't have depth, I think you guys really need to look at our roster. So I do think, and especially with Lachlan Ilias gaining a lot of confidence from this season, I think he's going to go to the next level next year. And having a full season of Latrell Mitchell is really going to help us as well. If he stays healthy all season, I do think we could push for a top 2 spot as well. I know you guys are going to say I'm a biased Souths fan, but putting him at 7th last year, seeing how well they played at the back end of this season, I can honestly say I think they will be a top 4 team next year. All right, the Sydney Roosters, and this one hurts me to say, but I do think they will be a top 4 side. Gaining Brandon Smith is huge for the Roosters, and yes, they did lose some talent in Siwa Takiaho, Kevin Nakwama, and Sam Verrills. They've still got a very good squad going into next year. So they still have Matt Lodge, and I believe that is all that will be there. Oliver Gildart leaves to go to the Tigers, so nothing too crazy there. I think the acquisition of Brandon Smith very well makes up for Sam Verrills. You could, you could make an argument that Brandon Smith is leagues above Sam Verrills. Maybe Roosters fans would disagree about that, but I definitely think Smith, I definitely take Smith a lot more times than I would Verrills. So I think the Roosters have made the right choice there. And another season with Jason Swali'i absolutely killing it for them. They're another team with crazy depth, and I think they're going to definitely test some of those teams in the top 8, and I do think they will be another top 4 team. So they are my predictions for the 2023 NRL Ladder. Let me know what you guys think. I know I'm going to get a lot of people disagreeing with me on this. This has been a very long video, I understand. But yeah, as I said on my TikTok, I'd go into this in a lot of depth. So that they are my predictions for the season. Thank you all so much for your support. Thank you all so much for watching. And as always, guys, I'll see you in the next one. Thanks, guys.